relationship between police and community has to change. The way we go about policing has to change. It has to change in this city. It has to change in this country. People need to know that black lives and brown lives matter as much as white lives.
In the wake of the grand jury decision not to indict a New York City cop in the chokehold death of Eric Garner, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is vowing to retrain the entire NYPD police force. But is this the right tactic, or is there a deeper problem at play? Joining us now, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. Good morning, Sheriff. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Some have said that this action makes the cop the enemy. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I agree 100%. Look, there's a war on police officers right now all across America. I find it shameful. These people are heroes. They risk their lives every day. 99.9% of them go out on an everyday basis and, put their best foot forward, adhere to the policies, adhere to the Constitution, respect people. Sure, there's a few bad eggs. We're not perfect as an organization. But what Mayor de Blasio did was throw the entire NYPD under the bus, and that's what I think is shameful. I think he should be embarrassed to be standing in front of that microphone groveling like that. I don't know how he can look any NYPD officer in the eye this morning. I think he ought to go to every precinct in the city and offer an apology. He ought to know what it would feel like to live just one day without the NYPD. That city would collapse. And I think he ought to start showing some appreciation for it, not just there. But I'm fighting this on behalf of every law enforcement officer across the United States who is under siege right now.
Sheriff, I certainly understand why people would be upset by the Eric Garner video. What I don't understand is the mayor's assumption, never explained, often asserted, that there was a racial component to this. Do you see this as an example of racism?
Not at all. And that's why I said the mayor's groveling in front of the microphone like that is shameful. He knows that. He's placating to a certain segment of the community. But he's the mayor of all of New York. And when he speaks, every New Yorker ought to listen and say, he's talking to me. And right now, he's chosen sides. But I'll tell you right now that he threw NYPD under the bus should be aggravating to every New York citizen.
Sheriff, I want to get your thoughts on this Time op-ed by Victor Luckerson. A portion of it reads this: "This is a small, common tragedy of black life that we don't talk about. The best way for me to find success in my own country was to be immersed in a culture entirely different from my parents and adopt it as my own. Learning to deal well with white people can help you get far in life, but it shouldn't be a requirement for holding on to your life." So is this saying that unless you conform to Caucasian culture, you're out of luck?
Boy, how stupid is that? He's suffering from an inferiority complex. He and too many other blacks, I didn't say all blacks, are on this perpetual misery tour about what's wrong with the United States. Here's what I call my black identity: hard work, preparation, self-determination, self-discipline, self-actualization, self-motivation, and when I fall down, get up. That's a black identity I have, and that is not the sole province of white society. I find it insulting when people talk like that.
What do you make of these protests, Sheriff, that are breaking out all over the country, particularly here in New York, protesters breaking into Macy's, Toys R Us, in the name of justice? Where do you think that's going?
Well, this is not in the name of justice. Look, this is an anarchist movement, and we ought to identify it for what it is. Nobody in California, and we're having the same protests in Milwaukee, where I'm from, nobody in Milwaukee has any remote connection emotionally to Ferguson, Missouri, to Mike Brown, to Eric Garner, to any police department there. And so I find it just embarrassing. And I find it a charade that these individuals across the country would be looting and rioting. That is criminal behavior, it's thuggish behavior, and it needs to be stopped.
Sheriff, we had Governor Mike Huckabee on the show yesterday. He said one of the things that he really hopes protesters instead get outraged about is the breakdown of the family and the lack of father figures, which is causing a lack of respect for authority. Do you see that as an issue?
It's a huge issue. Young men growing up without fathers, these failed liberal government policies have destroyed the black family. And until we put that black family back together, we're going to continue to see this type of behavior out of our young men.
David Clark, Milwaukee County Sheriff, man certain to be drafted for higher office, I would think. It's great to have you on this morning. Thanks for joining us.
It's always my pleasure.